Welcome to the show. We're excited to have today's guest. He's a 2016 All-Pro as a flex position as a starting running back for the Arizona Cardinals. Among many other things he's accomplished in his career, his rookie jersey and cleats are in the NFL Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio for his first 3 NFL touches being touchdowns, which is a record. He holds multiple Arizona Cardinals single-season records in both receiving and rushing as their running back in 2016. And he finished third in the AP Offensive Player of the Year voting in that season. He went on to have continued his career all the way through 2023. And my friend David Johnson, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, just wanted to catch up with you first about kind of what's been going on in your life and living here in Houston. What's the latest?
So right now I'm a full-time dad, hanging out with my wife Megan and I, hanging out with DJs who are our oldest. He's just turned 7. London, she's 4, and Eli just turned 2. So it's been a blessing, and it's definitely a roller coaster for sure.
Awesome. And I understand you're doing some coaching now, huh?
Yeah, I'm coaching DJ. I actually have a game in about an hour. Coaching his basketball team. We're 2-0, baby. We got our next game today.
Awesome. And DJ is your oldest. He's quite an athlete. I've had a chance to actually get to know him a little bit. What do you see him kind of being most interested in as his career kind of develops?
So his favorite sport right now is basketball. He's always asking me to watch basketball, play basketball in our front yard, and he loves just being active. The second one is soccer. For Halloween, he wanted to be Messi, Lionel Messi, and he loves to just go out there and kick the ball around. His foot control needs a little bit of work, but he just loves doing that. I think it's more because it's a lot of active engagement. It's not just standing there. He also plays baseball, and he loves that, but it's just a little bit more stationary right now because they're so young. But, I mean, he'll try anything. I think the other day he asked me to play tennis. He just wants to be active, which is good. You know, I'm glad that he just wants to be out there playing any sport or doing any activity.
So on that, with football, you know, having been a player for so long, is it something that you would allow your son, for instance, to play?
I would definitely allow him to play, but I would not allow him to do tackle. He plays football as well. He's always asked me to watch some of my games and stuff, but I don't think I would allow him to play tackle just because my experience, I didn't even start until I was in 5th grade with tackle football, and I just don't feel like they're developed or ready enough technique-wise of tackling or even being tackled to be able to do tackle football. I mean, their equipment alone, you can tell it just doesn't fit.
Well, what age is the right age, do you think, if you are going to let him play, for instance? Because
so the right age for me, probably when I started, maybe in 5th grade, but I feel like the kids nowadays are so much more bigger, faster, stronger. I wouldn't mind him to wait until 8th grade maybe, the year before he starts his freshman year in high school, just so he's not going straight into high school playing tackle football and trying to, you know, keep up with those guys. But I'm never going to pressure him into doing tackle or, you know, anything that's that demanding physically. And I think for him, the right age is probably middle school somewhere, 7th or 8th.
Yeah. Awesome. And I think there's a lot of debate about that now with head injuries, and you've had a couple. We'll talk about that in a bit. But it is so, me having played football as well, not at quite a high level, but I wonder now about my own brain health as time moves on, you know, just from getting hit in the head a bunch of times. Seems to make sense that it wouldn't be the best thing for you, research aside, right?
Exactly, because I feel like no matter what helmet's out there, you cannot protect the brain. And, you know, I'm just learning more of it now, especially when you're a young kid. You just want to be out there playing football. You don't really think into the long-term effects of football. And, you know, I advocate for anyone I talk to. They're always asking me, should I have DJ play Pop Warner? And I'm like, no, I do not believe in playing Pop Warner. And so with the concussions, we watched the movie Concussion and, you know, talking to talking to trainers and stuff, and they've told me that, you know, you cannot prevent no matter what helmet you wear. And so I just feel like any concussion is just blacking out at all.
Right.
5 seconds, 30 minutes, no matter what it is. You see stars, that's concussion, that's diagnosed concussion.
Can't be good.
And definitely not good.
Yeah.
It's like, every hit, it just adds up,
Yeah.
gets worse and worse. And so I've had 2 myself, but, other than that, I've definitely had times where I've had a concussion. I just played through it because
2 diagnosed
Exactly.
concussions, but as we know, I mean, you probably had many.
Oh yeah, you just don't know.
In fact, I think with the old rules, now it's a little bit different, as you know. But like with the old rules, if you didn't bring it up, it probably wasn't getting examined, right? Now it's like they're looking for signs of like disorientation, things like that. They're keeping a close eye on it. So we talked about in the intro just the crazy start you had to your NFL career.
Yeah.
I didn't know David Johnson, the name, it almost stood out because it's a more common name. There might be 100 David Johnsons that played in the NFL, and that's why you stood out to me. It's like, man, this David Johnson name keeps popping up. Obviously, I hadn't heard of you in college because you went to a smaller school.
Yeah.
Dominated there, but being at a small school, it just wasn't in the limelight as much. But with that crazy start, the only player ever to have first 3 touches in the NFL, went for touchdowns. It wasn't always that way, right? I mean, you kind of burst onto the scene at that point. So take me all the way back to kind of your upbringing in Iowa, football-wise, recruiting. How many schools even offered you a scholarship coming out of high school?
Oh man, it was rough. I had 2 scholarships only, and they're both from D1 AA, so smaller colleges. Illinois State and Northern Iowa, and no one really knows much about any of those, Midwestern colleges. And
Northern Iowa, I'll say, if you do know of Northern Iowa prior to David, it's probably because of
Kurt Warner.
Yeah.
Kurt Warner or the basketball team, honestly.
Oh, really?
That's about it. Because they had like some, couple years where they were pretty good. They knocked out like #1 Kansas in like 2010 or whatever. And so that's really all you know about Northern Iowa. And when I was getting recruited, even from Northern Iowa, the coach, I give him, some crap because even when he recruited me, he was like a little hesitant. He didn't know where to put me, if I was going to play receiver or linebacker or running back or he didn't know. And so he literally gave me a scholarship as an athlete and didn't give it to me until I went and did a camp. And I went and did the camp and outperformed the other, receivers and running backs there. And still was talking to me like, you kind of deserve this scholarship. We don't know where to put you. And, we have a lot more other guys that we're looking at, but, we're going to give you a scholarship.
On that note, you weren't playing running back in high school?
So I was playing running back mainly in high school, but when we needed a score or it was like a 2-minute drill, I would move to receiver.
Gotcha.
So
And you were what size at that point?
I was probably about 6'1", 185.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was
So it's a little confusing where to put you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And an all-state defensive back as well, right?
Yeah. So I was all-state, baby.
Yeah.
Defensive back. Yeah. So it was at corner, and I played both sides of the ball. I mean, that's what everyone, kind of did at my school. We're such a small school. And, so yeah, their teams just didn't, or colleges just didn't know where I was going to fit. I played, basketball, ran track, and played football. So it's not like I could keep the weight on. I didn't do like winter conditioning and stuff. And so they didn't know that I was going to, especially you and I did not know that I was going to bulk up this fast. And so.
So your freshman year, you gained how much weight?
So my freshman year, I redshirted. And the coach convinced me to redshirt because he thought I wasn't ready. Obviously, I was at 185, and I think they're still trying to figure out where to put me. I actually went to college as an athlete. He tried me at receiver, and then I bulked up. So with the rookie weightlifting session, I ended up bulking up to 215.
Wow.
Yeah, 215. Wow. With protein, knowing how to take it the right way, eating relatively the right way, and actually having an off-season program.
Right.
And since I didn't play, all we did was work out. And so I bulked up pretty quickly. And then it was kind of like, okay, you're going to play running back. Right. You're not going to be this bulky and be able to probably move as fast or as quick as a receiver. So
right.
I ended up moving.
So from that point forward, so you get to UNI, don't play your freshman year.
Yeah.
Okay. You gain quite a bit of weight. it becomes pretty clear at that point that you're a running back?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it became pretty clear by the time my freshman year was over.
Okay.
But as my freshman year was going through my freshman year, my coach at the time, Farley, he's still the coach there. He's a defensive minded coach. So he tried to get all of his, guys who are on the bubble, but very athletic. He tried to get them all on defense. And we were known to have a more of a better defense than offense. And so I got there as a receiver, and he was like, no, we're going to move you to safety.
Yeah.
And I was like, Coach, I don't know anything about safety.
Right.
I know cover 2 and cover 1. That's all my coach told me in high school. You either guard this man or you sit in zone.
Right.
So he's like, oh, you're fine. You'll figure it out. The DB's coach will teach you. It got to the point where we were still in camp. It was like the 3rd week, and the coach was like, just backpedal a little bit and just play the ball. See where the quarterback's looking and just react to it.
Right.
I was doing that, and it didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
It didn't feel right. And luckily at that time also, a couple of the running backs started getting injured. They ended up moving, guys around because I was a redshirt, but they could see that I didn't feel comfortable. It wasn't my strong suit to play safety. So I literally was talking to the offensive coordinator, who was also the running back coach, and I was like, Coach Solomon, I need a football in my hand. Like, I feel more comfortable having a football either if I move back to receiver
Right.
or move to running back. And, tackling is not me. I'm not going to tackle. I did in high school, but as the competition gets more and more better, I was like, no, I need a football. So they ended up, having really no choice because of my size, and they needed another running back because guys started getting injured. So, yeah, it was pretty evident that I was going to stay at running back.
And this is your sophomore year.
Yeah.
And then from that point forward, I mean, as soon as similar to your pro career, as soon as you kind of touched the ball, things just took off, obviously.
Yeah, it definitely did. And, I was blessed because Iowa State and Iowa would not recruit me. They would not recruit me. Iowa State, Coach Rhodes was like, you're not good enough. You can't play D1. You won't be able to transition well enough coming from Clinton, Iowa, and being able to perform at D1. And Iowa State was not a powerhouse, so I was a little, upset. Kirk Ferentz was, he was a little bit more peaceful with it. He just said I wasn't going to fit there.
University of Iowa.
University of Iowa, Kirk Ferentz. Yep. He was a little bit more peaceful with it. He just said I wouldn't fit their system. But the guy who was recruiting me, he had a whole opposite opinion.
Right.
He was like, we need David. Like, I went and watched him play. He needs to be at Iowa. And the coach at the time, he told me that he didn't agree with Kirk Ferentz and that he was trying his best to get me there. He wrote me hand letters and stuff, which you hear all the time, guys get hand letters. But to me, I felt like I had a little bit more hope because he was telling me that he tried his best and he really would have loved me. The guy who was recruiting me was the offensive line coach.
Wow.
He was like, he really would have loved me there. Like, I would have been great there. At the time, they did have some good running backs there. Like Sean Green was there, who was drafted. They had a couple other guys who were pretty well known in the college world. And so I think that's another reason why Ferentz didn't want me. And so fast forward, my first year playing at UNI, we play Iowa State.
Yes.
And it's like the big brother, obviously. They're paying us to play them. And I end up dominating. I have like 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I had like over 200, 300 yards, total yards. We end up beating them. And
then, do you address that coach? Do you talk?
Oh, I definitely wouldn't talk to him, but I was humble. I just said, good game or whatever.
Opportunity not to be
I know,
comfortable. It's a hard thing for this guy.
Yeah, I'm going to take the high road.
Right.
And so it's funny, though, because after we played him, he actually ended up getting fired after that season. And he, you can tell because the media ate him alive.
Really?
They were like, he's an in-state guy.
How do you let him
go through the cracks? And I think, that was one of the, I don't know. That was a thing that was against his coaching career.
And that trend kind of continued for you, right? Because I mean, when you later on in your college career, when you played both Iowa and Iowa State,
yeah.
you tended to absolutely go crazy.
Oh yeah. So I don't know what it is. Well, I do know what it is. It was a chip on my shoulder.
Right.
Every time we played a D1 team, I had to play my best. I had those games circled more than our rivals
Sure.
in our conference. So anytime we played Wisconsin, Iowa, Iowa State,
Right.
those are the only three teams that would play us, and I had to play well. I didn't think anything into the recruiting, into the league. I just wanted to prove that I could compete with those guys, and we held our own against every team. We never got blown out by any team. We should have beat Iowa one year. They ended up winning on a 2-minute drive. But even then, I went off against those guys. I had 205 receiving yards.
Right.
Couldn't run the ball.
Right.
That Big Ten defense, they're used to run defense, but they're not used to receiving backs. And
Right,
so
exactly.
when I played Iowa, I had 205 receiving yards against them, and they just couldn't stop me. And they ended up having to actually cover me with two guys, a linebacker and the safety.
Wow.
And I just couldn't wait to play those teams.
Yeah,
man.
and those games really did matter. I think that's what probably catapulted you into national consciousness. The fact that, because the tape, NFL scouts would throw on the teams that you were going to be, kids that you were going to be facing at the next level probably, and want to see that. So that's probably a huge part of your ascent. And then drafted in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
And then what did the process look like leading up to that? Was a combine kind of a, wow, like looking around do I belong here? I mean, you haven't been in those kind of environments much at that point, I'm sure, coming from you and I.
So that was good for me. I needed that type of experience to be around guys who I'm competing against to get drafted. And so the first thing was the Senior Bowl. And so going into the Senior Bowl, it was even another thing where it was they just gave me more and more motivation each experience that I did, because they literally overlooked me. Going to the Senior Bowl, they were like, "Where are you from? NIU?" I was like, "No, UNI."
Right.
What is your team? They're asking me questions that you would think they would know.
These are scouts.
These are scouts, two NFL team scouts who are supposed to you would think they scout every player that's on the roster for the Senior Bowl. And they were kind of overlooking me, going to the other guys who were the D1 teams.
Right.
They were talking to them, asking them questions and stuff. And
to the point even where you and I think the story went, it was you and Todd Gurley maybe were walking in.
Yeah.
Cleveland Brown scout literally was thinks you're like a friend or family member, and no, actually, sir, I'm
actually playing.
I'm one of these guys.
Yeah, I walked in. I was training with Todd, so we were going to the combine.
Right.
And we're walking in together, talking or whatever. And the guy was like, "Hey, what up, Todd, man? Excited to have you here and showcase your talents." He actually didn't do anything because he was coming off a knee.
Right.
And he was like, "Hey, what's your name?" I was like, "You one of his friends or whatever?" I was like, "No, I'm participating in the combine."
To play football.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty good.
I mean, I'm not a small guy, I fit the bill. I thought I, looked like a running back.
Yeah.
He was like, "Hey, what's your name?" I said, "I'm David Johnson," and he was like, "Oh, so you playing linebacker or you're a safety or something?" Right. No, not at all. That's and I didn't know he was a scout until, I going through the process.
Sure.
Each day you see they're wearing team issued gear.
Right.
And so he had a Browns
right.
shirt on, and it's funny because I think, so I did well during the combine. It helped me catapult me to, getting drafted in the 3rd round. And I think throughout the week, as I was doing, impressing the scouts more and more, I think he came up to me and started talking.
This is still Senior Bowl, right?
No, this is the combine.
Okay.
But at the Senior Bowl, so backtracking to the Senior Bowl, when I got there, they were like, "I know you're Northern Iowa is in the north, but we have enough running backs on the north, so you're going to be moved to the South team." Yeah.
Really?
That's literally what they told me. It's like, well,
So you're basically like a 4th or 5th team running back at that point.
Yeah, they were like, I think they felt like they had to put me in there because I did so well in college.
Right.
But I wasn't a
sure
big time college player, that they just put me on the South team. And I don't think the South had enough seniors that played in the Senior Bowl. All the other running backs were juniors or younger class.
I see. Okay.
So they can't participate. And so the South didn't have as many seniors playing.
Right.
And so, even when I got there, it was the same type of experience for me. know,
And that's the one in
the
Mobile,
coaches.
Alabama. I
Yeah,
think.
in Mobile, yep.
But you ended up winning. Nobody knew who you were going into the week. You ended up winning literally Senior Bowl Player of the Week
Yeah.
MVP honors.
Yeah.
So
So-
walking out of that situation, I mean, you completely changed your trajectory that week,
Yeah.
I'm sure, right?
I feel like I did. I feel like scouts started knowing me a lot more. So the MVP of the week, which I've told is more important than the game, because scouts don't watch the game because
Right.
it's too many variables.
Sure.
But throughout the week, you're doing one-on-one pass pro, one-on-one routes. You're doing all the special team drills, and that's each day. And you're in full pads every day. And so you're going through that, and they're scouts actually watching that, taking notes, seeing how you perform against, like I said, other guys you're going to either get drafted against, play against, be teammates with. And so it was a great honor, you know, that I got that, because I felt like I was, like you said, I was starting to, my trajectory was starting to go up.
Right.
I was starting to get, you know, known a little bit more. And throughout that week, I was doing pretty well, you know, especially like the receiving as a
Right.
running back against the linebackers, and the drills and the kick return and stuff.
Right.
And so that's really what started my starting being well known. And then I
Sure.
get to the Senior Bowl, and I still have that happen, you know. So I was like, man, I thought I was
Right.
trying to, you
Right.
know, I thought I
I
proved
see.
myself.
Yeah.
Then I get to the Senior Bowl, and it's like all over again. And then I get to the combine, and that happens to me again.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it just helped me, you know, put fire in me, because I was ready to go after those two experiences, one at the Senior Bowl and then at the combine.
Yeah.
And it just gave me more motivation,
Yeah.
because I mean, even in high school, same thing happened. So I felt like every level I moved up, there was something that kept me motivated, kept that chip on my shoulder to prove the doubters, or prove that I can, you know, play amongst these other athletes.
Right. That's so interesting. Yeah, and I think it's fun to hear kind of the evolution of that process through like the college and pro ranks, because it's such an unlikely story. You know, the odds of you sitting here, you know, being everything we just talked about in your pro career are so small, with the path you had recruiting wise, and kind of even after all you accomplished in college, you dominated the ranks in that way. You're still not recognized. You know, your name maybe doesn't stand out. And it's like, for you to do everything that you did, you just beat every eye. On that, a story that I just found incredible and so admirable regarding kind of another part of your upbringing. Talk to me a little bit about, you were born in Memphis, Tennessee, and not alone. You were born with your triplets.
Sisters, yeah. Triplets.
Which triplets are pretty uncommon. In fact, I think you're the only one I've ever met.
Yeah.
So tell me kind of about that process, particularly with your mom, and something that we share and we've talked about a lot. We kind of connected on is our mutual faith in Christ, and that's a big part of this whole story, of course. Yeah. But when you talk about beating the odds, tell me about kind of this what happened.
Yeah, I had a crazy upbringing. So I was born in Memphis, as you said, with triplet sisters and 3 older siblings as well. And single parent mom, and my mom had my 3 olders. The first one, Tina, she's mentally handicapped, and so she ends up, you know, my mom was born and raised in Memphis, and she wanted to get us out of that environment. It's very dangerous, a lot of crime going on. And we had relatives in Iowa, and so she told me that's how we ended up in Iowa. And so she ends up taking us all to Iowa.
At what age?
We were 1.
Okay.
Me and my triplet sisters, we were 1 year old. My other 3, they were about 12, 13, and 14. Okay. 12, 13, and 15.
And did your sister require like special care?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my mom, actually, I just recently, I'm talking to her about it, because you know, when you're a kid, you don't really ask questions. That. Yeah. Right, you know, I thought everyone had, you know, someone like that, or you know, I never thought of that mentally handicapped siblings were uncommon. Unusual, yeah. And so my sister Tina had to have someone come and help, you know, take care of her or get her around, or you know, just be a helpful hand for my mom.
Sure.
And so we ended up moving to Iowa, and through all this, my mom is dealing with drugs and alcohol, and she is, through everything that she's been through. I mean, obviously it could have been a lot better, but through everything she's been through, drugs and alcohol is what she did to probably cope with life,
Sure.
of everything that she's been through. And so she's ended up doing, all that. And through everything, she's getting, like DUIs and, crimes and stuff. And she ends up, when we were elementary, she ends up getting another DUI, and she has to go to jail for about a month. One of my older sisters is taking care of us, and she ends up, changing her life around because they said that she could have lost us, and so she ends up just quitting cold turkey. And at the time, I didn't know that was a hard thing to do. Just
Sure.
quitting drugs
Sure.
and alcohol was a hard thing to do until I got older.
Right.
And, you're learning about it in middle school and high school, DARE program and
Right.
stuff. And so I realized how strong my mom is and was to do what she did,
Right.
quit cold turkey, and she dove herself into the Lord.
Sure.
And so she started taking us to church all the time, and she even tried to do her own like church Sunday Sunday stuff. And she's one of the people that helped me kind of get saved. But I was young, I still didn't know, but I just remember, we sat down and she talked to me about, Jesus, and that's what when she was getting through everything, that's what helped her.
Wow.
Change her life around.
Yeah.
And for the better, obviously.
Yeah.
And that was in about 5th grade. And even with that stuff, we ended up going to it was like a rehab kind of center. And we just thought we were in an apartment complex.
Right.
But now that I'm thinking about it.
You're how old at that point?
About 5th grade.
Okay.
Yep. And yeah, because we were about 5th. Yep, elementary. And we thought it was normal because we were doing like activities every day.
Right.
Like someone would come and do like, we made like mud and worms, but it was like dirt.
Sure,
It was like dirt and worms, but it was like chocolate and stuff and gummy worms.
Right.
And they'd come and like play games with us.
Right.
And we just thought everybody was doing that.
Yeah.
And so we find out that, that was one of the things she did in her process to quitting. And so having to deal with all that, luckily I did have my sisters because we were all going through it at literally the same time. Yeah. Together. We're the same age. And so we were able to entertain ourselves. And, before she ended up even having to do all that, we were in and out of like motels, hotels, houses and stuff. And only for a little bit. I remember, when we were young, we did live in a house for a long time, but I don't know, it seems like through that one maybe year or so, we were in and out of different places, and we ended up living with my sister, like I said, for a little bit, my older sister. And so it was my triplet sisters, we were doing all together, and so we were able to entertain each other, come up with games, or play with and have fun with each other as we were going through tough times. And we honestly did not realize that it was a bad,
which is amazing
moment. I don't.
Just the innocence of a child.
Exactly.
Like lack of perspective.
Resilience.
Yeah.
It's never as bad as you think type thing. And, and I feel like that's made us stronger to be able to deal with a lot of, just hardships in life.
Sure.
And especially me. Because, when football guys are dealing with like, man, I got to get up at 5:30 to go to winter conditioning. It's like, oh, this is, I am blessed to do this, or, having to do training table and stuff. It's like, we're blessed to be able
to do this
instead
of I got to do this.
Yeah, like, man,
It's a big difference.
exactly. Yeah. You really changes your mindset on sports. And so through all that, football and sports in general was my scapegoat.
Gotcha.
Because I didn't have to be in that environment, which I still didn't think it was a bad environment, but football and sports, going outside playing with my friends, playing, tackling each other with no pads on. But doing that, playing basketball every day till literally the street lights came on, racing home before so you didn't get in trouble. that is what helped me,
Yeah.
get through all that hardship, and I think it made me more of a resilient and more of a like I can get through all
Sure.
these like 2 days or whatever it was with
Right.
sports. This the off season lifting, the running conditioning in high school and stuff, and so I think that's what made me where it's like, this isn't as bad,
Yeah. Speaking of that, and we've had this conversation. I'm sure you and I have had this conversation at some point, but I talk to it a lot. Talked about this topic a lot with clients. Like getting to this level, like having sort of that to go through all that as a kid. And like you said, you don't have perspective yet. It's difficult, but you don't know that because you don't know anything else.
Yeah.
And then now being in a fortunate situation that you've earned, you've earned an incredible amount of money, thank God, and because of your talents and your hard work. But now your kids have a completely different, and we talk a lot about that, like how to like instill perspective in kids because,
Exactly.
it's just such a different, it's just a different reality.
Yeah,
You know, I
lifestyle.
mean, yeah, like there were weeks, there were nights when you didn't know where you guys were sleeping the next night when you're a little bitty kid. You're just trying to get your bearings, and because of this, now being in a different situation, how do you like instill that in a kid or try to like establish perspective or appreciation? Because that's something we talk about a lot. It's just difficult.
Yeah, it's tough because not just that, but when you become a parent, you want everything for your kid that you didn't have.
Yeah.
And so I struggle with it a lot with like DJ, especially because now he's at the age where he's starting to play sports and it's getting more competitive. And it's like, oh, like this new bat, you can get them, or these new cleats, or the new hip equipment item. And so that's the toughest thing that I'm probably gonna dealing with as a parent is being able to let them know that you don't just get everything that you want. And especially with DJ, he's kind of at the age where he just thinks like if he breaks a bat or he ruins his cleats, that my mom will buy a new item.
Right.
And so me and Megan try our best to like instill that you have to work for what you want in life.
Sure.
It's not going to be given. So like, for instance, like we'll have to have him do chores or something. Or if he wants something, he has to, especially if he's at like baseball or practice, there's no goofing off.
Right.
Like I'm not going to be yelling at you to, you know, hit the ball perfectly, but you're not going to be sitting there playing and, horse playing with the friends around you. And so it's tough, man. Especially in this day and age, I feel like it's a lot different to when we grew up. Everything is so easily for them easy to get, accessible. Yeah. And so with like social media and everything.
And the internet in general, I just feel like, don't you feel like their awareness level now is so much higher than ours maybe ever was?
Yeah.
It's just like they know about things that we never knew about. It's just all accessible.
Yeah. Like
it is a challenge.
Even the little things to where it's like cursive, we always learn now they're doing computers.
Right.
Like DJ's already doing computers instead of like
Common Core math now.
Exactly.
I have no idea what that is, but I hear it's like terrible.
Yeah, seriously.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so it's just different times. And his lifestyle compared to mine is way different. Yeah. And we talk about all the time, how are we going to figure out how to let them first be humble and appreciative of everything that we give him.
Sure.
Or he gets, or he needs to deserve what he gets. He's not going to be handed a win in a basketball. Or he's not going to be handed an A on a test. Just anything in life.
Yeah.
That's my hardest thing that I'm going to struggle with because I'm going to want to give him, what I didn't have. So, we joke about all the time, me and Megan, like when he starts driving, he's going to get the oldest car that we can find on like Craigslist or something, because we don't want him to feel like he's just going to think of it and it's going to magically just appear in his life.
Yeah, I admire that about you guys. And one of the things that I admire most about you as a friend is just the father that you are. Just you're a hands-on dad. I've watched you with your kids, DJ in particular, and just how much you truly care about him and the way that you kind of coach him and parent him. And it's not about like outcome. It's not about like sports. It's not about any of those things. It's just love. You're there for him. I know you were, unfortunately didn't have the same opportunity in your life, but talk to me about that and kind of, the situation with your father and maybe how you offset that growing up. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, so I had a different, like you said, I think that's why I am so hands-on with my son, because when I was coming up and growing up in sports, in the sports world, my mom didn't know much about sports. She's dealing with her real life struggles and hardships. And so, luckily, I actually got into sports because of my friends. I wanted to hang out with them, and their parents are like coaches. So my friends, his dad was my basketball coach. That's how I started playing sports.
Gotcha.
Was
like
basketball.
A neighborhood friend or something?
Yeah, neighborhood friend from school.
I got you.
And we would hang out. They see me, playing, and I was athletic, just natural, raw athleticism that I had. And he was like, you know what? You should get David on the team. And I was like, am I going to hang out with you guys still?
Right.
I was like, oh, yeah, definitely. Let's go. Let's go play basketball. And I didn't think anything into the structure, or it became more of a competitive sport. I just thought I was having fun. And so they were the ones who would literally pick me up, take me, buy me shoes sometimes, or pay for the jerseys, pay for the tournaments. And so that's how I started, was basketball. And granted, the tournaments were in our city, so we weren't going far, but they would drive me to the tournaments. I think I started basketball in like 4th grade. And that's how it became, where like parents just took me under their wing. And they were the ones who were like making sure I had the things that I needed to participate and participate in that sport. I remember one year, actually, my mom, I love her. She tried her best to get me, equipment.
Right.
And I was playing basketball at the time, and we went to Walmart, and which now that I think about it, I love her to death, because I always will. But she did all she could
because of that.
Yeah, no, I know, right? She did all she could with what she had, and she ended up getting me some skater shoes for basketball, like the big DCs.
Yeah,
but it was
like
the off-brand.
Yeah,
but it was the off-brand Walmart shoes, and honestly, I didn't know any different.
Sure.
And I played in them.
Right.
Didn't change them.
Awesome.
Yeah, didn't ruin me at all playing basketball. And when you're at that in my time, when you're in 4th grade, people don't care.
Sure.
Kids do not care what you're wearing,
Right.
And compared to now, where it's like social media, you gotta have the best Jordans and stuff, arm sleeve. But anyways, so yeah, I remember in 4th grade, she got me some Walmart shoes. We didn't know much, which one was different. It wasn't like basketball shoes this way. Track shoes, you didn't know. And so
shoes.
Yeah, they're just all shoes. And so she got me some skater shoes, and I was hooping in them, man. I was getting buckets. Yeah. I was getting buckets in these the tongue is really big.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
And I think I have a picture somewhere I got to find, but I need to show my son that. But anyways, so yeah, I just remember that. But I just had parents who would take me under their wings for basketball. And then in 5th grade, we would travel around Iowa. And the different parents would take me. So it would be this parent from one of my friends would take me. Then the next week, it would be another different parent. And they all just... we felt like a little basketball family.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it was truly a blessing. And I'm glad that, that I had that. And they would literally, every day. And it's funny because that parent, the kids, you can tell like they're just having a different lifestyle than me.
Right.
Because they would complain about certain things. Oh, we got to run another gasser. Or, they're melting down and like walking out of practice, and I'm not comprehending why they're doing it. I'm like, why are you fighting so much to play basketball? And then, so I was confused on that. So then we get to football, and the same thing. We ended up having to pay for your football season in 5th grade. You had to sell candy. And we would go door to door, and of course, I would or my sisters would eat the candy. So we didn't sell it.
Right.
And we had the guy who ran the league. I always remember my mom, when I got into high school, she was like, yeah, he's still calling me for money that you owe. But it was more of a joke, because I did so well in those 5th and 6th grade leagues that he was like, I talked to him after this, as I got older in high school. He was like, we needed you because you like would bring people to the games, and they would buy, concession stand food, or they'd buy tickets to attend the game.
Right.
So it became a joke that like he would like, hey, Miss Regina, can I get that money? But it was always a joke.
Right.
But yeah, anyways, so yeah, that's sport. When
You
football
paid it
started,
off with your performance. Huh?
exactly.
Yeah.
I brought people to the game.
Exactly.
Well, it was just a couple people, but
Right.
it was that's where people started noticing me that I was gonna be good. And
Sure.
but yeah, I just had even fast forward to high school, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just the coaches ended up taking me under their wing and ended up, I remember one coach bought me some basketball shoes because I couldn't afford them. And it was the new Nike Dunks. That was when the Nike Dunks,
Who
Kobe,
was that coach?
not Nick Lawrence.
Nick Lawrence.
So yeah,
Okay.
I still talk to him to this day.
Yeah.
I still, chat with him. We still hang out. Like he'll come and visit, or we'll go and visit him when we go to Iowa.
Yeah.
And he's a guy who like he drove us. We made it to state my senior year of high school, and they drove us to state, which was about 3.5 hours
Right.
from our hometown, and we went to like a sports good
Right.
store, and I really wanted this shirt, and I just committed to UNI. I was like, man, this shirt's nice. I really want it. And he heard. I didn't say it to him, but he just heard us talking about it,
Uh-huh.
and he all of a sudden like when we got back in the van, the shirt was in the van, and I found out that he bought it for me.
Right.
And just little things that they
Right.
would do that
Isn't that
is
amazing?
Yeah,
It's like an act of kindness when you're a child, how much that you remember that to this 20,
Exactly.
15 years ago.
Exactly.
It's amazing. So Nick Lawrence.
Yeah, so now we're at the age where we like poke fun of each other
Right.
now.
Right.
He's
That's so
my
fun.
basketball coach. I tell him I'll dunk on him, and so I'll shoot him, and so
Right.
it's our friendship is still going,
Yeah.
till this day.
That's so cool.
It's awesome, man. Just the
Yeah.
people that I had, the adults, the dads, the parents, the moms,
Sure.
even to the point where I was getting recruited in high school to go to college, and to go to camps.
Uh-huh.
I would have to go to the camps, and I had a teacher, Coach Sullivan, and him and my high school football coach, they would literally coordinate to where Sullivan with his wife and 2 kids would drive me to like Notre Dame camp, Iowa State, Iowa camp.
Wow.
They would drive me to the camps and pay for it.
Wow.
And I didn't know, like how expensive they were at the time.
Yeah.
And he literally did a road trip with
Wow.
his family and drove me to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And
you just kind of, at the time, you don't realize,
No.
looking back,
the
now, it's
magnitude
such a
of what
huge
they
deal.
did.
Yeah.
'Cause I kind of got groomed to, I don't know if they all just spoke to each other like this
Right.
kid is a good kid
Right.
or whatever, but it just seemed like there was always a parent or a coach
Looking out for
that
you.
was looking out for me.
Wow.
And so they
That's
drove me literally to camps.
Yeah.
He didn't coach football. He
Yeah.
was just a teacher.
Yeah.
I don't,
I think that's such an encouragement to even single moms, just
Yeah.
hearing this story, because I think the bigger picture is that just because someone doesn't have a father in place per se, like a community can rally and it's hope for a mom who maybe out there has, has a kid who needs help. She
Yeah.
needs like a church community, a coaching community,
Exactly.
a group of people that can actually pick up the pieces and be that mentoring force for a kid.
Exactly.
Because you just to meet you and to know you and watch you as a father, no one would ever guess that you went through that as a kid and didn't have maybe what you're providing now. So I
Yeah.
just think that's an incredible testament to you, your mom, your community,
Yeah.
and now Megan with the way you guys are kind of raising your family. I just really admire that.
Mm-hmm.
Back to football now, because running back is kind of your passion. We talk about the position a lot.
Yeah.
Kind of a rapid fire round. Some of your favorite running backs. I'm going to throw out some names, at least some great running backs. Some I know you admired coming up. But tell me, in a line or two about what's special, what stands out about each name.
Yeah.
Emmitt Smith.
Emmitt Smith. He was my favorite running back growing up. His thing was he had the well balance of being able to power through tackles or break tackles at the same time. And his ability to just evade big guys, not just small guys. That's the easy part. But bigger guys, D linemen, linebackers.
So kind of at the line of scrimmage.
Yes,
more
at
so.
the line of scrimmage, being able to maneuver his body, put his body through, run through a brick wall, which is a D lineman or a linebacker, and get the yards needed and break tackles, and be that kind of that bruiser, that guy that the Cowboys at the time could rely on.
Tough.
Tough, yeah. Tough, strong.
It's fun. We've talked about this before, actually. And by the way, David's dog's name is Emmett, named after Emmett Smith.
Yep.
I almost adopted him at one point. Poor thing. He doesn't know that. I won't tell
Poor
him.
guy.
But
You have kids.
he's up for adoption if anybody.
Exactly. You have kids, and the dog, I feel like he's our oldest kid,
Poor
but he
thing.
just,
Dave's best friend, and he's giving him away. I showed Dave a picture of my room. I found it recently. I was telling Dave that he was like one of my favorite players, Jerry Rice and Emmett Smith. I was a receiver, but I loved Jerry Rice, and he was one of my favorite too. But am I right to say that, like, because you've observed so much running at the position, and I watch motion for a living, but when I watched Emmett Smith, what I see is, like, I feel like you could balance a cup of water on his head. It was like it didn't matter. He just looked level at all times.
Exactly.
And then obviously there was the game, maybe a playoff game where he dislocated his shoulder, ran for like another 100+ yards in the second half.
Only using his right arm.
Exactly.
Only carrying.
Incredible.
So that's the toughness of it, And like you said, is his ability to stay balanced.
Yeah.
Because, as a running back, you have to be able to be put in random positions with your body. Your leg might be one way, but you're trying not to fall, and guys are steadily trying to tackle you, and he had that ability, like you said. If you put a cup of water on his helmet is staying even, but his limbs, his legs is all over the place. And
how much did his offensive line, his legendary offensive line, contribute to his success?
He's my favorite player, but obviously your line, especially playing in the league, it's a whole, having a good line is obviously the best part of you being able to play for either a long period or having a good season. And his line, the Cowboys line, that dynasty during that year, obviously helped him, because the thing that with running backs is it's not that tallies up with injuries or bruises. It's not getting hit at the line, or it's not getting hit past the line of scrimmage. It's those hits like within 3 yards. The D linemen, the pile-ups, the linebackers. Especially at that era where the linebackers were the same size as the linemen. And so for him not to be able to have to get hit, until he gets to the secondary, the DBs, and they're like 180 pounds or whatever, that helps you out a lot. Because as the game goes on and you're only getting hit by DBs, you're feeling more fresh.
I've never heard that who you get hit by actually, whether it's secondary or it's kind of primary guys.
Oh yeah,
it matters.
Hey,
You'd rather get hit by Rod Woodson than DJ Reader.
Exactly.
Like one of the big guys.
Exactly.
Barry Sanders,
whose elusiveness, his ability to make a move in a phone booth, as they call it, which it was in like 3x3 yards.
How tall? 5'8", 7?
5'8".
Good.
5'8", probably played at what, 200? 200 pounds. So he wasn't the biggest. He wasn't as big as Emmett. And he wasn't the biggest guy, and you can see it on the field, but his ability to just break tackles in a phone booth, 3x3 yards. Every time he had the ball, you always thought it was going to be some type of electrifying run. And his ability to just make guys miss, man.
Sure.
And it wasn't even in the open field. That's the easiest part as a running back. But you're at like within those 3 yards. And his line, obviously, as you can say, compared to the Cowboys, was not as good.
I think there was that play against Dallas, actually, where, there are only 11 defenders on the field. I swear 8 of them were in a pile by the time he got done with them. It was like he just this way, that way, this way, spin around, down. Like, it's just, and everybody was just,
everyone.
I feel like nowadays, defenders that would never happen.
No,
you might make 1 or 2 guys miss. I don't know if people are too cool now, but it's like, he was making a fool out of everybody. It's unbelievable.
It's wild.
And then center of gravity with Barry Sanders, I feel like one of the unique things about you, near unique, is that at the time Dave was in his prime, he was probably the second, maybe third tallest running back in the NFL. That's a really unusual feature because center of gravity height, as we often talk about in our training sessions, it's the key to change of direction. So for an athlete to be able to get his center of gravity close to the ground, it gives him a real advantage in stopping, which half of the position, in my opinion, is not just your ability to start fast, but your ability to stop faster than anybody when you're trying to make someone miss. So you get them going, and then if you can break quickly, it gives you an advantage. Dave being 6'2", legitimate, I've measured him several times. That's a real challenge. So Talk to me about the perception of being a 6'2" running back, and then I've got a story to tell
Oh
regarding
yeah.
that.
So the perception of being a 6'2" running back is you don't have any agility.
Mm-hmm.
You like you said, the center of gravity is a lot higher. So you're more normally if you're 6'2", you're more downhill. You're not side to side, and I don't know why most 6'2" guys cannot catch or they're not a receiving back. And so I would say the perception is mostly like they're downhill, bigger guys, 230s, 220s, and they stumble or fall a lot
Right.
easier. Shoelace tackle or a DB's tackling them a lot easier because they don't have the center of gravity, which is like you said is a lot higher. So their legs or their body cannot be put in those crazy body positions
Yeah.
and be able to recover quickly enough to keep your balance and not fall to the
Right.
ground.
Right. So that's something that I'm sure you had to kind of battle that perception as you came kind of through the ranks.
Yeah.
What is he? Is he a receiver? He's kind of big for a receiver, like body type
Yeah.
wise, but he's the height of a receiver, but he runs the ball really well. Can he hold up? And the brutality of the position, I
Yeah.
think, is a big factor. And I'll tell you a quick story about a kid that we trained way back when he was in high school out of Katy High School, ended up committing to Oklahoma. I think I've talked with you
Yeah,
about
you
him
have.
before. His name was Rodney. His name is Rodney Anderson. Rodney, if you're out there, hello. But Rodney was considered the number one all-purpose back in the country. This was like back in, I don't know, 2016 range. Maybe I'm off by a couple years. But Rick Smith, who's a dear friend of mine, he was the Texans general manager at the time. I think maybe you've
Yep.
met Rick.
Yep.
But Rick happened to be the GM of the Texans at the time. He's working out with me, and I wanted him to see this kid, Rodney Anderson. Rodney walks through the door. He's maybe 6'2" and a quarter, somewhere in that range. And I explained to Rick he's like the best back in the country right now coming out of high school. Just wanted Rick to meet him and see him. And first thing Rick says under his breath to me when he sees him, he says he's not a running back at the highest level. And I said, what are you talking about? You know, I mean, this guy evaluates players for a living, but I'm like, Rick, you're crazy. Like, everybody in the country knows that this guy's the best running back out there. He said, I don't love his distribution. In other words, like the height of his center of gravity.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what do you mean by it? He said, they'll convert him to a wide receiver or he won't play at the next level. And I said, why? And he said, just he's going to end up hurt. And lo and behold, the Rodney, poor thing, ends up getting injured every single season. Season-ending injury for like 6 consecutive years. He had one stretch at Oklahoma, and this speaks to his talent. For about a 6-week period there in his junior year, I believe, he had come off of a broken neck as a freshman, a broken foot or ankle as a sophomore, an ACL, maybe his junior year. He recovered from that, and for about 6 weeks when he was healthy, he was the number one total yardage back in the entire nation for that 6-week span of his college career. Tore his ACL again, got drafted by the Bengals maybe in the 6th round with a torn ACL.
Wow.
And then the first, correct me if I'm wrong, but the first preseason game of his NFL career tore his ACL again. And then went on to rehab, maybe, bounced around a little bit or stayed with the Bengals for a little while. But long story short, it was amazing to see to me how an NFL executive who's been one of the best at evaluating talent took one glance at this kid,
Yeah.
saw his body type, his center of gravity height, his kind of leverage distribution, and said, he's not a running back at the highest level. And I thought, you're absolutely crazy, Rick. I respect your opinion. That's why I asked. But are you kidding me? And he said, he's going to get hurt often or he'll get converted to wide receiver. So it's just funny to think that pretty similar body type.
Yeah.
You had such success at running back, but your versatility as a pass catcher probably, if you were coming out now, would be even more valued.
Yeah.
But on that note, the brutality of the game, the game of football, how many injuries do you think you've had? Like documented injuries on a medical report.
I would say probably like 20 to 30, just because it's such a physical position. They ask a lot of us demandingly because of, we have to run between the tackles, 300-pound D linemen, and then you got to get past those guys. You got linebackers who are, 230. and just to get to the cornerbacks who are, and by the time you get there, it's usually, all 10 or 11 guys are on you. And so, and we're doing that, every play. Even if we don't get the ball, we get to do pass protection, which is you got to block a guy who's running full speed at you, and you got to decide if he's going to try to juke you or run through you. And most of the linebackers will try to run through you.
Right.
They're not trying to juke or anything. And so I've had, I would say 20 to 30 ankles, a lot of ankles just because of the tackling of DBs and stuff, or being in pile-ups, you get your ankles twisted.
I know you've had finger injuries.
Every finger is broken.
As you can see.
Exactly.
What's up,
every
man?
finger.
How you doing, man? Pinky square.
Pinky square. So, we just go through a lot of, and like I said, your body gets put in weird positions, man.
Yeah. That's why I would say, like, I obviously value like the injury preventive process. I feel like I've devoted my life to it. I really believe in it so much. But what I've learned after 23 years of doing this is, like, I think so much of your ability to hold up is God-given. Like, I feel like there's a baseline physical resilience to contact. You've only had how many surgeries?
I've had one surgery.
Your
wrist?
It's
a wrist,
Yeah.
None.
So bottom line is, like, with all the contact, it might be the most brutal position in sports in terms of, like, how many hits you take. Like, your preparation process, frankly, probably matters less than your baseline resiliency, to take contact.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because you can take other examples of guys that maybe were better fit for the position in terms of their height or their bulkiness or whatever it was, and they end up injured a lot, you know. So it's just an interesting consideration.
It's so true, and it's funny because when I was getting looked at by scouts coming out of college to go to the pros, that's like the number one question they ask you. Can you play through injury? Because as a running back, as any player, first off, any player in the NFL, after that first day of padded practice during camp, you're never going to be 100%. No matter what, you could be you can be any position. And then you go to running backs. I mean, as soon as the padded practice, we're doing, hitting drills, 9-on-7, which is like goal line. And that's before you even get to the first game 3 weeks later.
Right.
And then you have 17 games now.
Right.
And so that was the first question that scouts would ask me. That's the first one, and they would even go to the film and be like, so I see you're playing with an ankle injury. They watch to see how you play as an injured player.
Right.
Because like you said, your resilience to and pain threshold to play through an injury is the most important thing, because there's plenty of guys where if they're 100%, they're great players, like the best running back, best position or whatever. But you have a broken finger, or you have, with me, it was an ankle, or you have any type of, especially you get to week 14, you might not have anything broken, but you're gonna have a bruise, thigh bruise. You're gonna have your ribs are gonna be bruised, shoulders are hurting, and so that is one of the biggest questions I bet they still ask to this day at every combine, every interview that they have, is like, can you play through an injury, and how well can you play through an injury?
Right.
Will they be able to tell? Because you're going to be on the injury report like he's dealing with an ankle. And I wouldn't say defenders aren't like purposely going at it, but they're going to know. Like you have a wrist injury, they're going to know you're going to mostly try to carry the ball in one hand. And so I feel like compared to any other sport, you have to play through injury. You're not sitting out, and you got to play well, because you got to still play for, to win for that team.
Exactly.
And us as running backs, man, we go through so much physicality and so much, just brutal hits.
On that note, with the injury rate being so high to the position, and now, as we see, we're painfully aware of this year, Dave and I have kind of worked through the training process for the last over 2 years now, at only 31, about to be 32. Well, next year 32.
Yeah, this year coming up.
This year coming up 32. Not as many opportunities as a free agent as we would expect, given his resume, his kind of place in his physical setup right now, and his frankly youthfulness in terms of his physicality. The value of the position has changed so glaringly this year.
Practically.
Talk to me about what's going on with the running back position at the NFL level.
So, from my opinion, I feel like the biggest thing that's changed is one, it's become such a passing league. You know, they're the receivers, the tight ends, the quarterbacks, and left tackles are so much more
Value.
value. Yeah, because they are trying to make it's high scoring games, and they just want people want to see the quarterback throwing the ball and throwing it a lot. And so that's one thing. And then I think, like you said, the shelf life of running backs, they put us through. If you're a starting running back, you're going to get more than 300 carries
Right.
throughout the season.
Right.
And that's just 300 carries, not counting the pass protection.
Sure.
Not counting you're blocking for, a receiver,
Right.
or just being on the field and going through practice every
Right.
week for
Right.
17 weeks in camp and stuff. And so you just, you take a lot of hits.
Sure.
And I just feel like us as running backs, they want us to do so much. We got to be, a lineman, pass protection. We got to be a receiver trying to catch the ball. And we obviously have to be a running back. And so they want us to do a lot more, and they demand from us, I feel like, more than any other position, quite frankly. And then when it comes to especially players, when they get to their next contract and they're negotiating, they are like, well, he's lived his football career. He's through his prime, and he's done for, we'll just wait for the next young guy in the
Sure.
draft.
It's plug and play now.
Plug
right?
and play, yeah, exactly. And so I hate to say it, but our position is becoming, like you said, devalued, and they feel like they can get a running back in the draft, first, second, third, even later, who will they think that they can do what we, going into our second contract can do.
We talked about Emmitt Smith. He was once the highest paid player, the largest contract in NFL history to that point. And the position itself was so valued. You made a good living for a period of time as one of the premier backs in the NFL. For it to go from there to suddenly running back is the lowest paid position in football in 2023, it's unbelievable. But with that said, if you could go back, because you had a skill set as a wide receiver, knowing what you know now, if you're advising a 19 or 20-year-old David Johnson, are you even a running back? Are you committing yourself to wide receiver at a younger age with your skill set and your size?
Yeah.
Because you can play longer.
Yeah, knowing what I know
Kid
now.
who's in your shoes.
And honestly, telling people in my shoes, and you have the skill set to play receiver, it's not like you can do a couple reps or you can do like a couple routes. You actually have to be able to do the route tree and develop that way. I would probably move the receiver just because of that reason. Just the longevity and the demand, and just what we go through day in and day out as running backs, and they're what they're asking us to do. I would probably move the receiver. It has nothing to do with the money per se. It's more of just, like you said, the longevity and life after football.
Yeah.
I've talked to so many running backs who most of them are going through their second knee surgery, second, third hip surgery, bad back, and so it's just the life after football for me is more important, because I want to, as we talked about, as DJ's getting older, I want to be able to throw the football to him or play tag with him or whatever, and be out there and be as hands-on as possible.
Right.
And the running back is just a physical position.
Right. Is NIL a bad thing for college football?
Me playing and not getting NIL? No. Because especially me and I tell people this all the time. Me at D1 AA, we had a summer job. I did asbestos removal.
Right.
One summer. After my freshman year, I did asbestos removal.
Right.
And I was struggling in the summer just to keep the weight on.
And that's why you have lung cancer.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because when we're young and in college, you feel like invincible, that you could literally do whatever, go through a boiling room and clean the tar off of the asbestos tar, and then luckily I didn't have to do that, but that's what the videos were showing us. Like we had a trained video, and they're like, mesothelioma, like you will have mesothelioma if you continue this job as a career. Wow. And we were like, well, how much are they paying? And they're like, well, you're going to get paid pretty well compared to other, fast food or whatever. We're like, yeah, well, let's do it. So it was like me and 2 linemen. And I'm lucky I'm not a lineman because they had us wear these suits, these hazmat suits with the mask, and they were shredding weight. And they could not keep the weight on to
Wow.
save their life. And luckily, I didn't have that problem to where I had to keep my weight on. And to that extent, we had some crazy jobs that we had to do just for us to lift in the summer with our strength coach.
Wow.
You could go home,
Sure.
but I mean, the lifting in college is way more proficient than
Sure.
lifting in high school.
Sure.
And so I felt like I needed to do that.
Stay on campus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we didn't get paid. We didn't do it. We didn't get anything.
Right.
And most of the guys, compared to people that don't know, D1 and D1 AA, they can do half scholarships, quarter scholarships, and bring a player on. Whereas in D1, it's only full scholarship rides. And so I had teammates of mine who were like, they only got paid for books.
Right.
Or they only got paid for food. And so they would have to figure out how they're going to be able to pay to go to college, play football, and still go to like do stuff that other normal students aren't dealing with. Like we said, winter conditioning, going to games on Saturday, whereas everybody else has the day off, and doing that stuff, and then still having to pay. So with everything said, I feel like NIL is more beneficial than harmful. Granted, there's
For the players, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Granted, there is obviously, some cons to it.
Sure.
Make
it hard for small programs
Exactly.
to get players like you.
Exactly.
On that note, is the transfer portal good for college football?
That's a good question. You has to be either yes or no because, there's experiences. I would say no because the transfer portal, guys who they're not taught resilience and having to fight through adversity. Especially guys now that when you get to the league, you're not going to be able to just say, yeah, you know what, I don't like here. Well, as in college, it's like, okay, I'm not playing, or I have to compete to play against this guy or to play in front of this guy. I'm going to leave.
That's so interesting. Coming from you, that's actually very meaningful because you would be the guy who would benefit most from the transfer portal. After your freshman year at
Exactly.
UNI, you'd have been at an SEC school starting, the following year. You would have been like the prime example of somebody who would benefit most from that. But
That's
do
what
think
I'm saying,
it
though.
creates like a free agency situation.
Exactly.
Guys can just kind of jump around on one-year deals.
Exactly.
And then you add in NIL, it truly is free agency.
It truly is. And I would, I love UNI. I'm so grateful for everything they've done. I still made it to the league, and all the coaches have done great for me. But obviously, coming out of high school, you want to go D1. And so that's why I said it's either yes or no. It's so much gray area, but you have to have yes or no. For me, I probably would have transferred because of the opportunities. Granted, I still made it to the league, but I didn't know at the time, And you have way more opportunities going to D1 school with scouts coming and watching, going to the pro day, being, more attentive than me at a D1 AA. So, obviously I probably would have transferred, but you would have had to sit out a year, when I was playing.
Right.
And that's why I'm saying it's like it's a it's a gray area if it's like I said, is it the circumstance? How do you decide what circumstance that you can transfer in?
Right.
And so I feel like for me it's no, because the kids have to learn how to be resilient and learn how to fight through adversity.
Sure.
And I feel like for the transfer portal, it's not benefiting a lot because guys will actually get transferred and then won't play.
Sure.
So it's
so true.
It's a tough conversation.
And just in 2 minutes or less, how has your kind of strength and conditioning or developmental process evolved over the course of your career versus when you were young versus when you were a little bit older, as a mature NFL player?
Yeah. So when I was younger, high school, college, I was all about lifting the heaviest weight, putting the bar up there, putting as much weight as you can, and squatting 600 pounds, and just fighting through the pain. So my strength coach is a crazy strength coach, man. He had us do these things called breathing squats.
It's your high school?
My college
strength.
coach,
You've told
he's
me.
still there.
Yeah.
He would have us do this thing, and if you can get through his lifting program, you are going to be able to fight through any adversity as far as football.
Uh-huh.
He would have us do this thing called, it was during morning conditioning. He would have this thing called breathing squats, and we would have to put on like 90% of our max. My time or 85 to 90. At that time, my max for squat was like 600 pounds. So I had to do like 500 or 470. I did 475. And it was, you unrack it, take 3 very long, deep breaths.
Okay.
3 of them, like, as the bar's still sitting on your back.
Right.
Then you squat down, and he has this very deep military voice. 1. You stand back up. 3 long breaths again.
And then
squat down again. We do 20 of them.
Wow.
Yeah, he said it's like altogether you're having the bar on your back for about 2 minutes.
Wow.
And you're literally sitting there, and he loved to do that. And he loved the military workouts. We watched like 2 weeks of hell for military. And he'd be like, all right, guys, let's go. And he loved military and Russian workouts. And so I loved it though, because I was like kind of a meathead. Like I was strong, so I was like, let's do this, So we do that. We do it for bench, and then we do it for power clean as well. And so I was just throwing up the weight, but you get to rep like 10 to 20 on squats, your form is out the window.
Dead, huh?
Like you have no form. Your back is all rounded.
Right.
And he's just telling you, don't rack it. Like, guys, if you rack it, he'd be like, just on you.
Right.
You're not racking it. You're fighting through.
Right.
It's the 4th quarter, And so that lifting, I loved it. And at the time when I was just, grinding through it, and like 3 days later, my back would be in pain.
Yeah.
And we did that kind of stuff all the time. That RDLs, same thing, put as much weight. And I just feel like that's just college in general. Most guys I talk to in the league, they say their coach is trying to teach them how to fight through adversity, which is good,
Right.
As I'm getting older, I get into the league. I have a different coach. His name is Buddy Morris, one of my favorite coaches I ever had.
Famous
Buddy Morris. And
still with the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah. And
many-time NFL Strength Coach of the Year, by the way.
Yeah, for a reason after having him. Yeah. Because I didn't know that I didn't know that coaches would change the workout depending on your position, your injuries, and your anatomic body type. And so when I got to Arizona, I was like, yeah, I'm about to prove all these guys I can lift strong and stuff. He's like, David, nope, you're not doing that. Like, he fought me every time I tried to put weight on the bar. It's like, no, you're not out there trying to be a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Like, that's not your job. And I would just
He's not an idiot.
No, he's not. He's very smart, yeah. And it was good at the time, I was like, man, you're just
You wanted to push through it. Not
at
saying you weren't an idiot.
Exactly, yeah. At the
young.
time, I was like, man, you're just trying to hold me back. You're trying to put limits on me. And he was like, no, I got to get you to Sunday.
But he knew what was special.
But he knew,
It was your ability on the field.
Exactly. And we joke about it all the time. Every time I talk to him, and we'll like text each other, and he'll be like, "See, Dave, I told you, And anyway, so he would have me do like skills, whereas in college I would actually lift with like the linemen,
Right.
and then I would lift, just heavy weight. I would do their workout,
Right.
where it's like less reps, more weight. And then I get to the league, and Buddy's like, "No, you're gonna do the actual skill workout, because it's more for your position and it's more for your longevity to get through the season."
Right.
And I'm still fighting him every time we work out. And he's like, "David, now listen to me. I can, we can negotiate,
right.
But you're not putting more than 4 plates on the bar."
Right.
And so, fast forward as I get, older in the league, and now I appreciate what he's done for me, because now I do have, I'll have random back spasms, not now or anything, and it wasn't because of him, because he was the one who was like, if you don't have good form, you're not
Done.
You're not doing it. So guys who couldn't squat right, he would have them do like a whole bunch of auxiliaries and then have them do the leg press.
Right.
He would change the workout, and then if you have like an injury, you're not doing it obviously,
Right.
or you're not even, you're gonna strengthen all the muscles and the little muscles around that injury.
That's cool.
And I didn't know that.
Right.
I didn't know that you would do it.
And he's an old school guy too. Which is weird because a lot of them, it was like push through everything.
Exactly.
So it's kind of cool that he took a more like forward thinking approach.
Exactly.
He's a practical guy. Like, let's not be idiots and let's like keep you healthy for Sunday, So
because me and you talked about that too, because a lot of these strength coaches do Olympic lifting.
Sure.
And he was like, that's the most technical lift in weightlifting. And so he's like, yeah, you're over there doing it, but when you do a power clean and you're like leaning all the way back, he's like, what?
Right.
That's not, you can do it, but you're gonna
and there's some good clips of him like talking about the skill required to like lift Olympic lifts well.
Yeah.
It's like such a waste of our time and energy to like try to get you good at this lift.
Exactly.
When you're a football player, let's find things that accommodate your existing like skill set in the weight room.
Exactly.
Work from that. But
so that's what I appreciate that now as I'm older in the league, because now I don't do any. Obviously, I don't do any of that crazy.
Right.
If it's too heavy, I know like it's smart of me not to do it. But it just you already get injured enough as a football player on the field. And
sure.
He was good on like why would I risk you getting injured in the weight room? Yeah.
When we're trying to protect you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So. Awesome. I've learned a lot more of like it's more of functional movement, range of motion through you and body and stuff. And so when I was young, man, I used to
but there's also a benefit to that. I mean, it's part of what made you explosive.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing for like young athletes to realize is that we talk about like protective training with veteran athletes who are fully developed and like now their skill level is so high. If you just feel good that tomorrow in the NFC Championship, you could go out and tote it 20 times and run for 120, tomorrow afternoon because you feel good.
Exactly.
Like the strength is never going to be the limiting factor at this age.
Exactly.
It's more so when you're a kid, like strength is the limiting factor.
Yeah.
Now your skill level is so high, you just need to feel good.
So
that's kind of a spectrum. I think every philosophy has its place. It's just about selectively applying it to the person's exact needs.
Exactly. Because when you're developing as a kid, you need to get stronger, faster, bigger.
Yeah.
But when you get to the league, you don't need to get any stronger per se. Like
you're already good at what you do. Just feel good.
You've hit a threshold of your strength for the most part.
And that's just like pragmatism, just practical. Like let's just be smart here.
Exactly. Because when you get, especially like Buddy was telling me and you tell me, when you get too strong, then your range of something is getting backseat. Range of motion, or like you said, your explosiveness. And so when you're young, you obviously your body's more malleable, and you need to do that lift to get stronger. But when you get to especially like the league and stuff, and your football is like 24/7, more demanding. Lifting, you're not trying to get per se. I'm not trying to go out there and squat 600, 700 pounds, and
awesome. That's
so,
right. So next, what's next for you? Are you still intent on playing in the NFL?
So yeah, I'm still intented. I'm playing. I still want to play.
What would be the motivation for that? You've achieved so much. You're secure financially. You're in a good place. Why would you want to continue? What drives you to want to play again?
So there's a couple factors. One is I still, like you said, relatively I didn't play like this season, and I'm healthy relatively. I've had one injury where I had to get surgery, and I still feel like I can do it at a high level. I still feel like I can contribute to any team that's out there and be able to be plugged and played. That's the best part is with me being a veteran and having so many different offensive coordinators, so many different running backs throughout my career. I can plug and play and be ready to play right away, or next year join a team and be able to. They wouldn't have to worry about me having to learn the playbook, or with this offense, with the league becoming more of a passing game, learning pass protection and stuff. And then the next thing is my brother, who actually has been in prison, Marcus, since I was in 5th grade for about 20 years, 15 to 20 years. He actually gets out in 2 weeks, February 9th. And he's never seen me live play any sport, any competitive sport, basketball, football, track, none of that. because he went in when I was so young. So he's actually getting out February 9th, and we've
Wow.
talked about it. And I would love to have been on a team this year, and he literally gets out Friday and the
Of
Super Bowl
Super
Sunday.
Yeah, we talked about that.
And that would have been like a dream come true of mine and his. And it's funny because not just him, but everyone in my family is they're like football experts now, you know. And he's like a football expert,
Yeah.
man. Like, I don't know if he would have known as much about football and the excitement he gets, because he'll say like he'll be in with his the other inmates, and they will literally be talking about, you know, when I was at my prime, they would be talking about me. He'd be like, "Yeah, that's my brother," you know.
And they're like, "Yeah, right."
Yeah, exactly. So he
Yeah, my brother's Tom Brady.
exactly. They would definitely do that. And you have to show him pictures. You know, I visited him after my rookie season, and he literally, you know, I told you that's my brother, you know. And it's funny because like where he's staying, you know, that at that prison, that they're fans of that team.
Right, which is here in Texas.
Now it's here in Texas, but when I was on the Cardinals, he was in South Carolina, and the Panthers. There was a lot of Panther fans, and so, you know, he just, you know, was going, you know, just arguing with them, and you know, that combative, you know, just
the banter.
Sports banter, and so so anyways, he gets out, February 9th, and I would love for him to come to a game,
man,
and experience. Because me and him talk about it, we, like I was just saying earlier, would never have dreamed of being in the position I am in, and being a NFL football player. No one in my family, like, sometimes that we don't even comprehend, like, exactly how blessed
the
we
magnitude
are.
of it. Yeah.
And he, you know, man, I would love for him, because he was the father figure before he went. He was the one that, you know, we would, you know, do stuff with. And I remember he went to like Six Flags, and none of us have ever been to Six Flags. He went, and we saw a picture, and was, how did you went to Six Flags? And he would always get us like stuff that we needed when we were kids. And he was like the kind of the father figure. If we were like playing outside, and he would be the one that would be like, you know, making sure everything was okay with us.
Yeah, and Marcus is how much older?
He's about 12 years older than us. Yeah.
Man, what a full circle moment that would be for you guys. I really do. That's such a great motivation to be able to play next season.
Exactly.
So 2024.
Yeah, 2024 season.
Yeah, and I see every reason why that should happen physically and otherwise. Just knowing you well, physically having had the opportunity to work with you closely for the last couple seasons, along with a lot of other players at your position over time. I know that right now, NFL scouts should value you the same way that they did 6 years ago, because I see it physically, and there's no fall off, and there's a lot of advantages to your prowess in terms of being so veteran. So, and just a great locker room presence overall. So, but anyway, just want to thank you, David, for coming on, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you, my bro.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. Oh, it's been awesome.
And so thank you guys for tuning in. Leave comments or questions if you have any, and we can follow up with Dave. But thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All right.